Hello, ladies. I'm so glad to be back and to be speaking to you, and I'm even more honored that you are listening and that I don't have to go to your state or your country and go to a lot of trouble, and you don't have to pay my way to listen to something that you might need. Wouldn't it be nice to get some homemakers together and really have a nice homemaking seminar and really talk about things that matter? I've been to so many ladies' days over the years, because I'm a preacher's wife, come away with very little practical things that I could use, and it kind of got away from the homemaking aspect over the years, and I questioned whether or not we should leave our children and go and do that or spend that much time away from home. Sometimes these seminars began at 9 in the morning and ended at 3 in the afternoon. That's a long time for me, especially to leave my children with my husband who wanted to get about doing something else, and it's a time when my life is not involved with them. So I decided I would make a listen as you work video for you homemakers who really don't have the time to stop and look and watch someone do something. So hopefully I can keep you a little bit of company while you get something done, and maybe you could clean a room, maybe you could unload the dishwasher, you could fold something, you could bake something, and leave me a list, please, of what you are doing, because it helps other people see what people do all day at home. You often hear that ignorant remark, what do you have to do all day at home? I'm holding my teacup because I often set it down somewhere, get to talking, and forget to show it to you. So this is the first one I'm showing it to you, and it is one of those Gracie Chinas from Coastline Imports that you get at TJ Maxx or Home Goods. Now, the reason I show you so many things from Home Goods, I do have some of the antique teacups, but I'm enjoying these a lot. They're more sturdy, and they really, you can, they're everyday teacups really, but they're not delicate, but they're beautiful, and they look like the old-fashioned teacups, and I just love them, and so I wanted to show them to you for this reason. Hunting and finding and picking around in Goodwill for old teacups is all fine and dandy, but it cannot always be fruitful. But when you go to Home Goods, you're sure to find something. You're sure to find a cup, and it's brand new, and that way you know where it's been, and there aren't any, rarely are any flaws in it. You do have to look them over a little bit because they are probably called what's called seconds, and might just maybe have a print that's just slightly off, or something, some reason that they're there. They were just from the last season, and they've been bought as salvage by the store. Anyway, I wanted to show you this because it's got this cute continuous rose on the side, and it has it going over to the inside there. Isn't that nice? And the art is just beautiful, and I love the glaze on it. It's smooth, it's shiny, it's soft. It's not like there's no roughness on it, and this is more of that Gracie china. And it has a pink background. The inside of the cup is white with gold. It has a lot of gold on it. Now the average price would be $6.99 to $7.99. I wouldn't pay any more. Sometimes you'll find a cup for $12.99. If it means that much to you, go ahead and buy it, but I'll pass it by. And so, ladies, I wanted to remind you about teacups because if you're home, you need to do something special for yourself, and just having a cup of tea in the morning while you get your list ready, so special. What if I told you if you could come home, that you could come home and be a homemaker, and you would get to do this every day? Do you feel silly doing this at the office or at your place of work? Would you feel rather silly and looked down on, or you know how people are, they'll make fun of you. and but you could do this at home, and you can dress up, you can wear a dress, you can wear a skirt, you can do what you want, you can look like you want, you don't have to fit in with the crowd, you can create your own style. And so I wanted to show this to you. I can't quit holding it. I really like it. It has a lot of gold on it. Of course, you can't put it in the dishwasher, and you definitely can't put it in a microwave. And so, but it's very nice. I would use this to serve my ladies at the ladies class. I buy teacups by one. If I see 4 of them there, I'm not going to get 4 of them. I'm just going to get 1 of each style and each color, because then if the ladies get to walking around, if I have company and they get to walking around with their teacup, and they set it down on the buffet table, then they know which one is there, so I don't try to match, even when they're all seated. So I'm going to have a little sip of tea myself. just here for just a minute. And I am going to talk about several things today. Now, I'm Mrs. Sherman, and I have a blog, and I'm making these videos for my blog. I really didn't intend to have a YouTube channel or to interact with YouTube, so I've included a link. You can go to my blog, and you can watch this on my blog. Because of some of YouTube's questions and their algorithms, sometimes it won't play or it won't notify the subscribers. But if you'll go to my blog and subscribe to my blog, it plays on my blog. So I want to get away from using YouTube someday, and I want to have this handy for you to listen to as you go. And you don't have to watch anything. There's nothing, I'm not going to show you anything. And so I wanted to, what I want to do is use Titus 2, which teaches women to be guards and guides of the home, and to love their children, love their husband, and show how that's possible at home. Now, if you grew up in a home where mother was not happy, she was cranky, or there was a lot of tension in the home, maybe you don't realize that that might have affected you and you don't desire it, but you can have happiness at home. Everyone can desire to be home. Sometimes my children would come home from a trip that we took, and they would literally kiss the floor because they were so glad to be home. It was our place. So I want to start out with appearance, because if you're not dressed yet, now's the time to go and get started. If you're having trouble getting started, you don't know where to begin in your home, what to do first, and there are so many things to do, then just go get dressed and fix your hair. And if you wear makeup, and if you, whatever you do, add a little bit of fresh scent, cologne or something like that, and you know, you might not see anybody all day. Now, I'm also speaking to women who are alone. I know that there are a lot of women who are homemakers who are alone. They have no family, and they are home alone. And so I hope to inspire you too, because, you know, it's hard. I have been left alone a lot, and it's hard sometimes, isn't it, to begin your day knowing that no one's really going to notice, and no one cares, but you care, and God sees all that you do. And also, you have to feed yourself happiness. And so I want to start with some beauty tips, just a couple of them. One is, make your appearance smooth and serene. If you have too much stuff on and too many different prints and things and different kinds of textures, now if you want to look a little younger, then wear things that are smooth. Don't wear nubbly textures and houndstooth and things like that, or too much plaid, or too many textures that you can see the texture of it. I've heard people say that the smoother the smoother your skin will look, and I believe it brings out more of a smoothness, and that's just my opinion. I'm trying it out, and that was one of the tips that was given to me, so I want to use that. The other thing is posture, upright posture. Now there are aids now for posture. There are these things that you can wear around your shoulders that keep your shoulders a little, and your back a little bit straighter, so that you won't develop a hunch. And you can get those. I'm not sure where. Maybe they're at Walmart, but apparently they are quite effective, and they're helpful for people who do a lot of things hunched over and then find that it's hard to get back into good posture. And in homemaking, you know, we do everything from the front, don't we? We manage everything from the front. We lean over children, we help them, we pick up things, we vacuum, we wash dishes, we bake, and everything's from this area. And it's very easy to get stuck in that poor posture. And I think you need to take regular breaks and sit back. And also find some of the posture aids that you can find, because, you know, the Bible talks about the man that walks upright. And of course, that's a figure of speech, used as a figure of speech. Uprightness, you know, the word walking and the word sitting and the word standing were often used as figures of speech for the spiritual aspect. And so a person that walks upright is not someone who's defeated, walking around being pulled down by something that's very detrimental to his spirit. And it's someone who's walking upright is someone who has better health, and they have better spiritual health if they're walking upright. in the spiritual way. So we talk about this uprightness, and also something that I learned recently that is very good for the home. Two more things that I'm going to tell you about the home. I think I've pretty much done the beauty tips that I'm going to do today. I have very troubled skin, but so I have to have good coverage, and I do have the products that I like to use. But in general, I think that you should look like you're not wearing makeup, or just be very subtle with it. It has to make you feel good, it has to be pretty, it has to make you glow. And it's the same with your hair, it's the same with your clothing. It can't look unnatural. And so those are my beauty tips. And so now I want to move on. I've spoken 10 minutes about beauty. The other thing is, before you do your hair or your skincare, go for a brisk walk, just maybe down to the mailbox and back. Just go down there. And I live out in the country, so we have a bit of a walk to the mailbox, whether it's sleeting or the heat is oppressive. And I find that I don't know what it does to the skin, but I know that my skin is healthier and it looks better after I have been for a walk. And then I start putting the skincare on it. It just goes on better. And so that's just one of my tips. Maybe it won't work for you. So I just wanted to share that with you since people are asking about that. So I want to go, the other thing is, all these things, the homemaking, the appearance, and the dealing with people, the three things that I usually talk about here, they're all integrated in some way. So when I talk about appearance, I might integrate some of these other things. And I would like to tell you something to avoid if you want to have a really good beauty tip. Avoid futilism. That's not the same as feudalism. Those of you who are homeschooled that taught your children what feudalism was, the feudal system. But futilism is almost the same in a way, because it's the attitude that everything is futile. Why do better? Why try anything? Why try to improve? Why try to get out of your situation into a better one? Why even think about it? Why read a book about it? Why even have plans and dreams? It's just futile, isn't it? It's just nothing's ever going to happen, and nothing ever comes to fruition, and this attitude is so bad. And can you imagine being and it affects your beauty, it affects your inner beauty, it affects your mind. It's not good for you. Futilism is, there is no point in the idea that there's no point in dressing better, looking better, being healthier, reading more, understanding more, learning a new skill, because what's the point? That's futilism. I think there's another name too. It's fatalism, but I call it futilism. And I made that up. Futile is I think it's fatalism, and that is that the idea that things are already set in motion, and what's going to happen is going to happen, so you don't even bother to try. But that's not how God wanted us to do. He told us to renew our minds, for one thing, and that's doing something. And he told us, whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might. So there's so many do's in the Bible. You might want to look that up sometime to see why he's told us to do. And one of the reasons that we're told to do in the Bible is because it helps us develop wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And one of the best ways to develop and collect an arsenal of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding is to do some things and learn from your mistakes. Now, a lot of people won't do anything. They won't even try to draw a flower unless they know they can draw the most perfect flower in the world. They won't even try to knit or crochet unless right away they know they're going to be an expert at it. They won't even allow themselves a mistake. But here's the beauty of a mistake. They will learn, and let's say they don't want to play the piano because they can't be an expert, and they don't think they would be very good at it, but they have an opportunity to try it, and they won't try it at all because now some people are just not interested, and that's to be understood. But the beauty of making a mistake and allowing yourself, look at a child when they learn to walk. See how many times they fall over, and then they push with their little hands and push themselves back up, and they'll try all day long to walk upright. They'll try and they'll just try again. They won't quit and just lay there and cry because they couldn't do it the first time, but they learn little by little. And they also learn from their mistakes. They'll learn what makes them fall or where to walk, and just whatever's safe. They'll hang on to the edge of a chair and walk around it. And so, but they make mistakes and they learn from them. And so we learn from our mistakes and we say, okay, that didn't work. I won't be doing that again. And then you develop a little wisdom from it, and then you gain a lot by developing, but you cannot develop wisdom, knowledge, and understanding by not doing anything. And you just can't develop it by going straight into something that you're already good at or that you think you'll be good at, because it takes an effort. It takes getting back up from your mistakes, and then you can smile and move on and say, well, that was a mistake. I won't be doing that again. That is the best attitude. That's not futilism. And so I wanted to talk to you about that, because that does affect your beauty, whatever you put in your mind. This futile attitude, this futilism or fatalism, is not good for you. It makes you cynical. If you want to look up cynical in my search area, where the internet area is up on the upper left-hand side of my blog, just type in fatalism and cynicism, or cynic, C-Y-N-I-C. Just type that in, and I've got a big long article about Cynic, a philosopher, I believe, who lived probably before Christ. I can't be sure. A lot of those philosophers did live before Christ, but the cynicism is still going on today. It had quite an influence, and it is very wrong. It's very anti-Christian. It flies in the face of true life and love of life, and joy and invention, and doing things better, learning to be experts at things. It flies in the face of all. It's just laziness. It's just people who just didn't want to do anything. It's cynicism and fatalism and futilism. Want to just avoid that. So, beauty tips. Now, let's go on to a couple of things, some homemaking tips. If you've got something to do, maybe you could just go and do this now. There's no point in watching me. There isn't anything to see here. And I didn't get any younger. I didn't get any thinner. I didn't get any smarter. I didn't have a better hair day. There's really nothing going on here. But you could listen to me if you want to. And if I'm not irritating you too much and I'm not interfering, then you could have me as your over-the-fence company to talk to you. So I want to talk a little bit about developing the skill of food preparation in the home. You know, if you can prepare your food at home, you're going to be healthier and you won't have any additives in it. So let's say you love buying a salad just in a little box. You bring it home and you eat it, and you love these prepared salads. Or you love, you know, a lasagna or a pizza, and you bring it home already made. Every day, try to substitute one thing that you buy ready-made. Try to make it at home and then take over making it. So let's start with the salad. You buy yourself a head of lettuce. You buy all the little pieces that you like going in it, your radishes, your tomato, your avocado, your what else? Just everything else that you like to go in there, go in that salad. You buy some eggs to boil, you buy some meat, anything you like to put in that salad, and you learn to chop it, and you learn to cut it, you learn to peel, you learn to fix it, and you make your own salad. You can even make your own salad dressing. And so you try that, and pretty soon you see you feel better, and it digests better, and it tastes better. So every day or every week, if you can possibly do it, analyze your groceries that you are buying, that you're paying for, and buy the ingredients for them. It might seem like more at the time, but you can get more out of it. You can make more pizzas with your homemade ingredients. And all you need to do to make a pizza crust is take your scone recipe or your biscuit recipe, your baking powder biscuits, if you know what I'm talking about, and make that, spread it flat in the pan like a crust, and there you've got a pizza crust, and you don't have to go through, you know, the yeast rising and everything, because it's very much easier on the teeth to make one of these baking powder biscuit or southern biscuit recipe. What it is just baking powder with flour and milk or water, and it's a lot easier on the teeth and the digestion than the pizza crusts. You can make your own at home, and the children will love it, and you can pile it a lot thicker with your proteins and your cheeses. And so there are a lot of things that you like that you are buying that might have extra ingredients in it that are not good for you. You know, people are having so much trouble with different health problems, and so I would suggest once a week buy the ingredients for something that you are buying ready-made and make it yourself. There will be leftover ingredients and it will give you twice as much. So that's a very good homemaking tip. Cooking. Replace store-bought commercial things one at a time. The other thing I want to talk about is how to use blocks of time. And really, it just makes you come alive once you learn how to do this. Okay, let's say church starts in 15 minutes. You're all ready to go. You've got 15 minutes. What are you going to do? You're just going to sit there and wait till it starts? Nope, you can unload the dishwasher. You could do some clean jobs because you're probably a little more dressed up in your best. And you can unload your dishwasher. You can check the dryer, see if there's anything in that, and fold it. You could iron something, iron maybe one or two things. And you're that much more ahead, aren't you? You can go in the bathroom and tidy up, pull the shower curtain shut, fold the towels neatly, wipe the sink. Blocks of time. Blocks of time. They're so important. 15 minutes blocks of time that you think you can't do anything. Let's say someone's coming over, you're all ready, you're sitting down there, the tea is laid, and you're waiting for someone to come. You don't just sit there in a chair and look out the window waiting for them to come. You get up and go do something, and you fill in that time. And so we need to learn to do this because it will keep your mind balanced and also keep you from feeling too overwhelmed by these undone jobs, which once that's free and clear, then you have time to go do your favorite things, whether it's card making or sewing or anything else, you know, music, anything else that you like, and then your home is always ready that way. So I had about 15 minutes block of time, and I was waiting we were going to go somewhere together, and I was waiting for Mr. S to get some things he needed to go to the post office, get the stamps on them and everything. So I just went into the guest room and I pulled open one of the drawers to see what was in there. And, you know, I tend to store things in there, and I got it all out, sorted it all out, and left the drawer empty, which is my goal, to leave all the drawers empty in these rooms if they're a guest room. And so I thought about that for many years. I thought about those drawers, and I also would write it down on my list and never get it done. But I decided to use these 15-minute blocks of time, or any blocks of time, 5 minutes blocks of time. Is there something you can put away in a minute? Can you look around while you're standing there by the front door waiting for everyone to come so you can all get in the car? Look around. Is there something that you could move? Is there something you could pick up? Is there a book you could put away? Is there something you see that you want to correct or put out or whatever? One of the things that I like to do is if I'm leaving the house and we're going to be gone quite a few hours, when I come home, I don't want to come home to an empty, depressing, dark house. So what I like to do is set out the tea things and turn on a light and, you know, make sure that the heat isn't going to be too low so it's not so cold when I get in if it's winter, and just kind of tidy things up and make it look like I'm expecting myself, like I'm expecting company. And your children will love to come home to a house that's waiting for them. And another thing I wanted to say about children is they love to sit at the table and have a dinner served to them. They just love that. They love sitting at the table. And I saw many times I've seen children rather crying and disappointed because the parents did not want to sit down and eat. They wanted to eat on the run. And children just love sitting around a table and eating. They love the noise it makes. They love the way the utensils clink against the plate. They like the glasses. They like everything. I think it's such a beautiful time for children to make it the best you can, because you're creating a history for them and you're creating a childhood memory for them. Why not give them some good memories? Why do you sell yourself short and try to do things that are miserable or that are miserable for you and for the children. You've got to make your home shine brighter and better than any place at work, than any daycare center, than any school, than anything. It has to be better. And so being a veteran homeschooler, I will tell you, you have to make your home the center of everything, the center of culture, the center of learning, the center of spiritual things and development and learning to think, just learning to talk and learning to communicate in your home has to be the center of it. And you want it to be a pleasant place, and you want them to remember they were happy there, and you want them to want to come home again. So the other thing I want to talk about, I've spoken for 25 minutes, and I have a book I would like to talk to you about. I think I will save that for last because I want to also talk to you about being blessed. And one of the things that is forever on anyone's mind is politics, and some of the things that are said about people are not exactly flattering, not nice, and I wondered about this because I'm always very offended. If you're from overseas and you say something very derogatory about my country, about any of our dignitaries, any of our elected officials, I get very, very, I don't know if I'm offended, but I'm very concerned because I believe that we have to be careful. The Bible says we're not supposed to speak ill of dignitaries, but we're supposed to pray for them. So I think we're blessed when we do that, and I guess I am very disgruntled when someone wants to talk down about any of our officials, especially because we elect them. It's not like these are people that just impose themselves on us. We're elected. And I did explain to you in previous videos that every state is a little government too. It has its own House of Representatives representing all these little counties and areas in our state, and it has a Senate, and it has a president, which is our governor, that lives in the governor's mansion. It looks very much like the White House in many states. Have you ever been to the governor's mansion and the seat of government in your state? You see the Capitol building. In every single state there's a Capitol building. It looks just like the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Now, one thing that I've explained to you is that the states formed in a united way, the states formed the central government, not vice versa. So how did they form the central government? Well, every election in the state, the state that you're in, elects 2 senators to send to Washington, D.C. Now that's beside the state, some of the state elected people that are in your own little state Congress. Okay, and I know that sounds complicated, but 2 of them go to Washington, D.C. from each state. So be careful who you elect, because they're forming that Washington, D.C. Central government that I have heard that many of them, though really wanting to help and really sincere, once they get to Washington, D.C., the whole atmosphere changes for them. They're sucked into a bubble, and they just kind of forget what they're there for. It's probably very easy. The atmosphere is apparently very, very different, and once they get there, it's some of them will be sucked into it. And so that's why you have to be careful who you represent, because who you elect to represent in the Senate. Now there's 2 for each state in the Senate, and then there's the House of Representatives, and that is, I forget what it's called here, but the House of Representatives, we have our own representatives here, but we send it according to our population. So a state like California gets 53 representatives sent to Washington, D.C., and a state like, I guess, Delaware, I'm just guessing, would get 1. So that's why we have to be really, really careful who we elect, because some of them are going to Washington, D.C., and they're forming that government. And when we find out that they're not voting to represent us, that they're not really representing us, they're just going the way that some of this politics pulls them, rather than remembering that they were elected by constituents who expected them to represent us in various things, then we start to say, okay, where were they from? Oh, they were from such and such a state. And then we mark them. And if it's from our state, they don't get elected again. I keep getting an email from one of our senators, and who's all gung-ho about some sort of political thing that we never asked him to do. We never demanded that he do that or anything, but he got up there in Washington, D.C., and he got on a different, what you would say, trying to think what I'm thinking of, an issue that has nothing to do with Oregon, it has nothing to do with us, and he got on this issue, and he's pushing it, and nobody asked him to do that, and he is very arrogant, and so he will not be re-elected because we're finding this out. It's really good to get their emails even if you don't like them, because then you know what they're up to. Okay, so I wanted to also say, to be blessed, we need to pray for them, and we need to appeal to them, and we need to know what they're up to, but we don't, you see, when people don't, in your personal life, and as we kind of move into this next subject on dealing with people in the home, and dealing with people around us that might be trying to discourage us, we will notice one thing, and that is when they really don't have a logical explanation or a logical argument, they just reduce themselves to telling you you're crazy, or saying that you are mentally ill, and that's not an argument. So we want to be careful with that with the politicians, and we do that the same way. We do not call them crazy or mentally ill or anything like that. We want to discuss the issue. We want to say, why did this politician, what does he believe about this issue before we even vote for them? And so, and we'll be blessed too if we pray for them, because that's ultimately what God wants us to do. That's our, what you call activism, is to pray for these dignitaries in our lives that matter to us. I want to move on a little bit to the other thing you can do is to live as exemplary life as you possibly can. I mentioned that in previous videos. So now I talked about last time that I was here with you, this idea of people telling you that you are that you don't do anything all day. And I can imagine you've probably had a list, and you've looked at that list and maybe not gotten one thing done on it, but you might have done a lot of things around it. You might have done a lot of other things. So you might want to list the things that you have done so that you don't get too discouraged. And when you have children, you bring them along with you and say, now children, I'm going to be doing this. You can watch me. You can sit in your little chair and you can watch me while I do this. And they can help. And even if they don't actually help that much, at least they are participating and they follow you around from room to room. And so that way they know that you are doing something, and they won't grow up saying, my mom just sat around and read useless old novels and drank tea. And so write down the things that you do, because somebody might ask you, what in the world do I do all day? And I always have a lot of fun with them when they say things like, well, I understand you're just sitting around not doing anything, and you're just living the life of ease while your husband does all this work and he earns the money and you spend it. And they'll come into a perfectly clean house, beautiful, well-kept furniture, a table well set, beautiful meals. They'll come in and they'll observe all that. Some of these people, maybe you've had company over and they observe all this, but it never occurs to them how it gets that way. It doesn't get that way by someone who's not doing anything. And when they say you're mentally ill, you can always say, you know, that's a good point. I must be. I think about that often when I'm cleaning the bathtub or scrubbing out the toilet. You know? And when they tell someone that, or they tell you that you don't do anything, you'll say, well, I thought about that when I was making the bed, or when I was hanging out the laundry, or when I was sweeping the floor. How can this not be doing anything? And, you know, sometimes people just want to, if you are making any progress in your life at all, if you're living the life that you dream of, you're living your dream, they will say you are living in a dream world. And that has just been the common thing that's gone around for quite a while. and there's more people have more opinions about the woman staying home than ever before, and yet more women are deciding they will stay home. And you don't have to have a great big income. You don't have to have a house. You can, wherever your dwelling is, you can stay home and you can mind the business of the home, and you can guard and you can direct it. And ladies, I think it's really important to keep your humor and your enthusiasm about you, so that you can be of use to your family. Now, if you're broken down and someone is running you down to the point that you're sort of immobilized, you're not any good to your children, and they notice it. Even if they don't understand it, they notice it. Your body will be a little stiffer. You won't be able to focus into their eyes as much. And if you have no children around, if you have no one around, you still aren't developing very well and fully as a person. If you've got a lot of extreme mental hardship pressed on you by these people, it's best to learn how to deal with them and stand up for yourself in a polite way, and sometimes not so polite, and do what the best way to do is to prove it by doing. There's no point debating with these people or getting in a long conversation with them. But I find one interesting thing to say sometimes to someone who's critical is, well, according to your great experience and wisdom, how should it be done, and what should I do? According to your experience, because most people who are critical haven't really done it, have not been homemakers. So now today, I have such an interesting book for you. Now, homemakers have to be interested in many different things. They don't have to, but I am. And there's an attitude that has gone around in the past that we cannot be interested in anything outside of homemaking. We can only be interested in homemaking, only interested in the family. And of course, I am interested in my family. They're around me. They're sitting around while I'm reading this book, which isn't about the family. So we are interested. We're allowed to read about different things, you know. We're allowed to study a language. We're allowed to do anything we want to at home. It's very important for our children to see how we use our minds and what they can be capable of too. Now, a lot of people will say really dumb things like, well, if you're just going to be a housekeeper and a homemaker, why would you want to know about science, or why would you want to know about how to fly an airplane? You know, and I read about these things. I'm always reading about them. We had a teacher when I was in 7th grade that was a small airplane pilot, and he was enthusiastic about his airplane, and he had a block of time in that classroom where he was allowed to teach any extracurricular interesting thing, and he taught us how to fly an airplane by diagrams on the paper. And then he took us out to see his airplane and let each one of us get in, and he gave us a test, and he let us tell him what the name of the instruments were and what you would do if you wanted to do this or do that. And so he taught us, a bunch of 7th graders, how to fly. I thought that was really interesting. And he was from Minnesota, and he had come up to Alaska as a teacher, and I thought he was so interesting. So today's book is called Storybook Cottages. This is a wonderful coffee table book, bit heavy, but those of you who have a coffee table, you might like this. It's got such pretty pictures in Storybook Cottages. And in it is featured 2 people. I've told you about this in some of my writings, and I don't know what the name of the blog posts were, but they involved someone named Alexander Davis and Andrew Downing. Okay, now their middle name is the same. They admired President Andrew Jackson, or their parents admired President Andrew Jackson, and named each one of them after Andrew Jackson. And to this day, many people in the South and on the East Coast have the name of Jackson in their first name or their last name. And Jackson was so popular, such a popular president. He helped America prosper for I guess 75 years, even after he died. We had a real good economy and a real good economic system, and he I guess had a lot to do with preventing banks from charging exorbitant interest, and so that the people could prosper. And so he was Alexander Jackson Davis, Andrew Jackson Downing. It's hard to remember, so I'm just going to call them Alexander Davis and Andrew Downing. I mentioned the Jackson because so many people had that name during the Jackson era. When babies were born, the parents loved this president so much that they named their children after him, and his name was Andrew Jackson. And anyway, this Andrew Jackson Davis was formerly an architect, and he made buildings for the government. And when the government, I guess, finished that phase and they didn't need to hire him anymore, he started to use his skill as an architect to design homes for people, because we were entering a new era in the 1800s where there wouldn't be so many servants, and we would need smaller houses, but they had to be beautiful. And the scroll saw was invented, so they had all these what we call gingerbread cuts, all embellishments all over it. And then Andrew Jackson Downing was the son of a landscaper, so he knew how to landscape. And so these two men in the 1800s provided, I guess it was 1842 was basically when all this happened around then. They combined their efforts and they made home plans for people with the garden in it, and everybody had enough space for a fruit tree and some chickens and a garden and several trees, so you could put a swing on a tree for a child. And they included in this book, this is a complete collection, I believe, but in this book is included drawings of the actual floor plans. So I want to read a couple of things for you out of this. I just wanted to show you this picture here. I'll try to put this on my blog too, but they're just so charming, and it's called the Gothic Revival. Now, the Gothic Revival in America was wonderful because these houses were so beautiful. And I don't know how the Goths got blamed for so many other things, because they could really the style of these houses and the Gothic Revival was just absolutely wonderful. They could make an old barn look good, I am telling you. And like, for instance, now I think there was similar revival in Australia, because I remember seeing these ornamented type of porches and windows and what we call the gingerbread. So now this is a little bit more. This is more like for a rich family, but I wanted to show it to you. And you know what that's called? It's called the wedding cake house. And so I want to read it to you. A lot of these are pictures of houses that actually are standing right now in America that these men designed, and their property that they designed. And so I want to read it to you and tell you that it's full of beautiful colored pictures. And there's very little resemblance here out west where I am, because it was a little more rough, and I believe a lot of it was mostly cabins, but I could do a lot with these, So this one is in Maine, and it's called the Wedding Cake House. So if you've got something to do, you can listen to this. It's called the Bourne House, shown in color, along with black and white images from the Historic American Buildings Society that highlight the home's virtuous trim. In 1855, George W. Bourne, to impress his bride-to-be, embellished his federal period home with a wedding veil of trim which all but obscures its original neoclassical lines and features, known as the Wedding Cake House, possibly because its ornamentation is that many steps above simple gingerbread trim. It is as close as residential America ever came to replicating the extravagant spirit of England's Strawberry Hill. Don't know what that is. Documented, if you're English, you can leave me a comment, please. Documented in the Historic American Building Survey, The Bourne house is the most ornate example of a Carpenter Gothic home in America. It was called Carpenter Gothic. Oh, it just makes me want to go down to the hardware store and buy stuff and start building a house. At each corner of the house, a tall spire, like those on a church steeple, reaches heavenward. The exuberant facade incorporates trefoil-embellished spandrels that extend its length and pointed arches that frame its original Palladian window and fanlight-topped front door. Even the outdoor water pump is shielded by a Gothic roof. Which presumably the new Mrs. Bourne was not drawing her own water, but her neighbors would certainly have known how highly her husband prized his wife. Now, one of the things I have said before, if you want to type in Victorian homes in the little search area of my blog, I've written a lot of articles on Victorian homes, and one of the things, or Victorian architecture, is that made them so wonderful is that there were no two alike. Like they weren't manufactured like they are today. But one of the things that I wrote about them is they were made for someone instead of for sale. And so different places around here, we go for rides sometimes and we'll look for a house, and there will be, it'll be in the Historical Society, and on the sign it will say it was built for someone's daughter, or it was built for someone's wife, or it was built for someone's, and it was always the women that it was built for, and there were no two alike. Now they might have two alike, but they were transposed. The different sides would be on the other side, and so that's what's so interesting about it, is to have a home that's built just for you. Isn't that exciting? Now my mother had that. She married my father, and they went to Alaska, and they built a house that was tailor-made just for them out of the wood that was the logs that were on the property. And so she went into a house that no one had ever lived in before. Everything that she used was brand new, and it was for her. And that's really exciting. Now I live in an older home that has its problems, and it's not my own, but I never stop dreaming. I still want my little storybook cottage. And so I want to know a lot about it, because one day, I might just have the opportunity. How many of you have gone through life sometimes missing opportunities because you weren't alert, because you didn't see, oh, that's an opportunity? And I heard about a lady who had an opportunity. Someone, she and her husband were young marrieds, and someone wanted to give them a piece of land, but they said they would have to build a house on it, and of course they had no money, and they just turned it down. They didn't even think, well, this will take time, and we could have maybe a manufactured home put on it or something. They didn't even think. They just knew they couldn't do that, and they thought they were stuck where they were, so they missed out on it. Well, years later, that piece of property became very, very valuable. So if you have an opportunity for something, it doesn't have to be property or land, but opportunities to learn, opportunities to know things, opportunities to change things, and opportunities. You need to live with that, because you have to live with some kind of goal and some kind of hope. It doesn't stop once you're grown up. It doesn't stop. You have a lot to look forward to in life. So ladies, I hope that this has been very valuable for you. If not, I hope you'll find something else and not waste your time on the web. Hope you'll stop and have yourself a wee spot of tea. Would you do that and think about it? And don't save it for anything special. Get yourself a nice teacup from Home Goods and use it. And if it wears out or breaks, there's probably more where that came from. And enjoy life as it is right now. And enjoy your life at home. And don't let yourself get discouraged. And don't let other people discourage you. One of the things that you can do, if you get somebody who wants to come in and talk for 20 minutes and not let you speak, what you have to do is, now a lot of you probably don't have any outside company like I do, but I've been a preacher's wife for many years. I'll get people from all walks of life who aren't even church members that will come in and want to talk, and what you have to do is keep showing what you believe by doing it. So I just keep working, I just keep perfecting. I want to redecorate a room, I will do that. A lot of people find that that's futile. They don't want to do that. They don't find, why are you doing that? Once you do something, apparently you have to stop and you don't go any further with it. But I like to keep life interesting, and if you want to be happy at home, these are some things that you can do. And as your children get older, it gives you an opportunity to change things. They will have different needs as they go from nursery to toddler to older child to teenager. You will have the opportunity to change things for them, to change their rooms around or to switch rooms around. And life is never the same. It never stays the same. And you can preserve your memories, and you become the family archivist, and you'll have stories to tell. And one of the things that we used to do when my children were little is I would give them an adventure, and then I would let them write about it. Take them outside, we'd go for a long walk, and we'd pick up things like pine cones or leaves, or take pictures, or draw pictures while we're out, find a place to sit down and draw a picture. We'd sing a song. We would observe any kind of movement we saw, and then when they got home, they had to write about the experience. What did you see, what did you hear, and what did you smell, and how did you feel about it? And that way they could have an experience and write about it, and it was a safe experience. These are really, really important, especially when you're homeschooling, because the best homeschooling you can give them is a part of yourself, not the curriculum and not the books. And the books should always be things like this that are fun to look at. If you leave this on your coffee table and you have children, one of them might become a house designer or a builder, which is what happened to me. So one of our children were all interested in this, and they all got into some kind of a business that went with this. And so decorate your, I'll put the name of this and a picture of this on my blog. So please subscribe to my blog. There's also a PayPal donation on the side if you wish to donate a little bit. If not, that's fine, but please leave a comment. That's a great contribution. Leave a comment. Let me know what you did, if this was helpful, if there was anything in it that particularly struck you as meaningful. I would really, really appreciate that. And ladies, don't forget to start your day out with gratefulness. Sometimes it's dreary, it's dark, it's stormy, but that can be exciting too, And many great stories have been written that had storms in the background. And learn to ignore a lot of things on the outside. This is what I do and have done for years. We would move around a lot, and we would get ourselves in a climate that was just terrible. I'd learned to ignore it. I focused on my home, focused on improving my skills. I'd learn new recipes, and I would learn more about sewing, and particularly learn about trying to deal with people. And I learned a lot of that by trial and error, because you really can't go to school and learn some of the things that are going to happen to you over the years. And you just have to kind of collect it all as an experience and learn how to deal with it. But I hope that the dealing with people will be beneficial to you. And one of the reasons I do this is because the homemaker is not going to be free from these kind of things, from criticism. And the critic is usually someone who's very unhappy and very desperate and very probably very lonely too. The critic also doesn't know how to converse, because that's how they converse. That's what they do. And they honestly think that to contradict people and to criticize them is healthy. They believe in that. They think that's really good. In fact, someone once asked me, why can't I criticize your country? Why can't I criticize your governor or your senator or whatever? Because you don't understand. This is us. This is me. It's like in the church. We are the church. If you're a member of the church, you are the church. And wherever you go, you are. The church is the people. And so our country is the people. And so a lot of critics that's how their blood runs. They've got to criticize. They just run that around. It's just like a wheel, and they just run it around because that's how they feel that they're alive. And they may have grown up around it, or they may have developed this sardonic, sarcastic type of thinking just to get by in life. Life is futile to them, and so that is what's sad. And the best thing you do is live the life that you want them to live. Do the things that you want others to do the things, because they're not going to listen, they're just going to argue. But nothing speaks better than example and success. So ladies, I hope you'll have great success in your home. Hope you get your laundry done today. Hope you get all those dishes done. Hope you get the floor swept. Hope there's a nice smell in your house, the bathroom shines, and that all the clothes are put away, that the children are happy. There's nothing greater than to have a little boy or little girl jumping up and down because they're excited about what you're going to do next. And like I say, they love to have, they love the stability of the home if you'll make it that way for them. And so the best thing you can do is give them a happy, carefree childhood free from worry and heavy responsibility, heavy adult responsibility. Because there's only one chance at it. There's only one chance at your life. So try to find ways to develop happiness and to give happiness to others at home. So ladies, I'm going to say goodbye. I haven't spoken for quite an hour, but I hope you got something done. Hope you got your beds made. Hope you got something cleaned out. You know, if they say, if you're feeling a little confused, one of the things that you can do to absorb the anxiety is clean out something. Pull a drawer out and dump it out and clean it out. We've all got those junk drawers, right? We've all got the pencil drawers. So if you, there are little things you can do. Start with the little things. Start with this tiniest little thing that's the easiest, like clean off a windowsill, shine a mirror, and walk around and get, you get more ideas. The more you use your hands, the more activated your mind will be, and you can have your happy home, and you can have your children tagging along with you, and it can be an activity in itself to keep house. So I'm going to say goodbye now, and I hope you'll leave me a comment, and I will see you next time. Bye.